What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Celios Network. So today we're doing a deck profile on Lucario-Lycanroc. So this deck was used at Portland Regionals. That was the first week of Lucario-GX being legal for tournament play. And Michael Premwat and Rahul Reddy both took this deck, a list very similar to this one, to day 2 of the tournament. Before we get into the deck profile, I just want to shout out real quick everyone who gave bits and subscribed and all of that during my first month of being a Twitch affiliate. If you don't already follow me on Twitch, check out my stream sometime at twitch.tv/Celios_network. And you can get this cool Celios emoji that if you subscribe to me on there, the one right up here above my webcam. So without further ado, let's get into this deck profile. So we're starting off with one Buzzwole-GX. Really strong card. This deck is kind of like a reimagined Buzzwole-Lycanroc, which we've seen have so much success, partly because Buzzwole's so good and partly because fighting type weakness is really good to hit because of how good Zoroark is and how popular it is. So Jet Punch, 30 for 1 energy, and then 30 to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So this is knocking out a Zorua on the first turn and dealing a 30 to a bench Pokemon as well for just 1 energy. A lot of times this can do 50 or 60 on the first turn because you are playing Strong Energy and Regirock. Maybe even a little more because you're playing Kukui. And then its other attacks, Knuckle Impact and Absorption GX, I haven't used too much in this deck because we aren't running Energy Excel like Max Elixir as we do in Buzzwole-Lycanroc. But it is possible if you're hitting something with Lucarios and then they're living and you're not reattaching to new Lucarios all the time, you could power up a benched Buzzwole and then swing for the game later on with one of its bigger attacks. But in my opinion, it's just here for the Jet Punch mostly, and you're going to be using Lucario and Lycanroc as your heavy hitters. We are playing 2 Regirock-EX, sorry, 180 HP. This guy's just a bench sitter. Its ability, Regipower, the attacks of your fighting Pokemon, excluding Regirock-EX, do 10 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. So this really helps Lucario rack up an extra 10 or 20 damage for each Regirock if you're trying to one-shot things. And we'll get into some of the math in just a second when you will need the extra 10 damage. So we're playing 4 Riolu. This is probably the best one, 70 HP. It has Detect, so flip a coin if heads, prevent all effects of attacks, including damage done to this Pokemon during your opponent's next turn. Not a bad attack if you're in a pinch and you need to live another turn and Riolu's the one out there trying to do it for you. Also, Jab is actually really good sometimes because you can attach a Strong Energy and knock out a Zorua because Strong will make Jab do 30, and then times 2 for the weakness. So this is why we have Riolus in the deck. Lucario-GX, the new promo card, Stage 1, 210 HP, and very important, fighting type. So this card has some similarities to Golisopod-GX, except it's hitting that very important fighting type weakness. So its first attack, Aura Strike, does 30 damage for 1 fighting energy, and if this Pokemon evolved from Riolu during this turn, this attack does 90 more damage. So if Lucario evolved this turn, Aura Strike is doing 120. Now we'll get back to that in a second on about which damage modifiers we'll need to knock out certain popular cards in the current standard meta. Cyclone Kick for 2 fighting and a colorless does 130. You will get to use this sometime, but it's not your main attack, and it's not even that great of an attack, but it is an option when you do get some energy charged up onto your Lucario. Cantankerous Beatdown GX is Mad Bull GX from Tauros, but copy-pasted onto Lucario, and I have no problem with it because it's such a great attack. So Cantankerous Beatdown GX for 2 colorless does 30 times the amount of... So 30 damage for each damage counter on this Pokemon. So if your opponent is trying to 2-shot Lucario, they really need to hit it super lightly if they don't want to get return KO'd with Cantankerous Beatdown. So in a lot of situations, if you bring up Aura Strike and knock out their Pokemon, they will either have to one-shot you or hit you for a small amount of damage, so like 40 damage, so Cantankerous Beatdown will only do 120. Or they have to hit you for a considerable amount of damage and just take the risk that you will be able to one-shot them with Cantankerous Beatdown GX next turn. Also, I should also mention the third option, which is just Guzma around Lucario, or don't attack at all, which are all fine for you if you are playing Lucario, because you wouldn't like them to just either go and hit something less important on the bench like a Lele, or not attack, or swing into your Lucario. The only bad part is if they one-shot it. So there's a lot of options your opponent has here that are not really too great for them when you leave a Lucario-GX with no damage on it in the active. They have to find a way to one-shot it like Mew-EX, or maybe they're playing a deck that can naturally hit 210. But oftentimes when I've been playing Lucario-GX attacks, Lucario-GX decks, my opponent has been very hesitant to swing into Lucario and more likely to search out a Guzma for their supporter for the turn and just play around the Lucario for a bit. And I'll talk about how that works to your advantage in some matchups and whatnot. But let's talk about Aura Strike's math. So Aura Strike for a fighting energy, if you evolved it this turn, does 120 damage. So this is what relevant Pokemon has 120 HP. Not too many. Because of weakness, it's one-shotting Lycanroc-GX. So we do have that. Let's go a little bit farther. With a strong energy, it's doing 140. So 100... Oh, I'm sorry. Aura Strike, very important one I missed. Aura Strike for 120 clean with a basic fighting energy does... it knocks out a Mew-EX in one shot. So you don't really need a Mew-EX counter in this deck, because you can just knock it out with your main attacker, which is really nice for one energy. So 120 knocks out a Lycanroc-GX, it knocks out a Mew-EX. Add a strong energy, that is knocking out 130 HP Pokemon. So popular psychic tech right now is Mewtwo from Evolution. You are one-shotting Mewtwo with 140 damage. Also, with 120 or 140, you can knock out a Vikavolt, because they're also weak to fighting. So I forgot to mention that. With just the fighting energy, you're one-shotting Vikavolt, and we're also assuming that you evolved Lucario this turn for all this math. So, let's go up to 150 with a strong energy and a Regirock. You are one-shotting a Magnezone. And that's probably it. But a lot of times you'll swing something light with a Zoroark or a Tapu Lele early. So 120, 130, 140, 150 can matter in the long run. But the higher numbers are where it gets a little more interesting. So 160, nothing comes to mind right away that it hits for a one-shot. That's important. But 170 is very important. So Aura Strike 120, strong energy up to 140, a Kukui up to 160, and then a Regirock up to 170. So that one-shots a Tapu Lele GX. Also, a Choice Band and a strong energy, that one-shots a Tapu Lele GX. That's also 170. So you're hitting all 170 GX Pokemon. Lele is one of the most popular 170 GXs. So 180, which is Aura Strike with a strong energy, a Choice Band, and a Regirock. That's hitting 180. That's super good. You're one-shotting Tapu Bulu GXs. Without the Choice Band, it's 150, so you're also one-shotting Gallade, which I forgot to mention earlier when we went over 150. And then if you have a Choice Band, a strong energy, and you Kukui, or have two Regirock or two strong energies, you are hitting 190. So 190 is killing Buzzwole GX. It is not killing Ho-Oh because Ho-Oh is resistant to fighting. It is hitting... What else has 190? that might be everything important that has 190. Yeah. So it's killing Buzzwole, which is still pretty good. But Lucario-GX is, as I'm just trying to show you guys that Aura Strike can really rack up the damage pretty quickly because of Strong Energy, Choice Band, Regirock, Kukui. Like Regirock and Strong Energy just add so much power to fighting type Pokemon that other, like if this was printed on a different type, like say a Psychic type Pokemon, you wouldn't have Regirock and Strong Energy to add a quick 30 damage to your attack. And it is possible to hit 200, so it's possible to one-shot Lycanroc and Espeon-GX. So Aura Strike 120, Strong Energy 140, another Strong Energy 160, a Choice Band 190, Regirock 200. Or you can replace that Strong Energy in that equation with a Kukui, and that's also hitting 200. That's relevant because you're one-shotting Espeon-GX and Lycanroc-GX. So yeah, I went on for a while about this card, but just wanted to show you like all the different combinations we have in this deck to really rack up damage for 1 energy, or possibly 2 if you're using a second strong to make your damage output a little higher. So then we're playing 2 Rockruff, 1 of the promo and 1 of the corner, just in case we have a situation where either of those will help more than the other. We have both at our disposal. And then we're running 1 Lycanroc-GX. So Lycanroc-GX is a stage 1 200 HP fighting type Pokemon, and when you play it down from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon, you may switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon with their active. So it's a Lysander, Gust, Guzma effect without playing your supporter for the turn, so that's really powerful. Claw Slash you won't be using, ideally, fighting 2 colorless to do 110, but Dangerous Rogue is a super good attack. For fighting in a colorless, this attack does 50 damage for each of your opponent's benched Pokemon. So, if they have 3 benched Pokemon, you have a Strong and a Choice Band attached, that's doing 200 damage. So, really strong for only 2 energy. And we're only playing 1 of these guys because we do have Super Scoop Ups to reuse them. And we're looking at this to be a pretty aggressive, pretty fast game where you're trying to take all of your prizes really quickly. So 1 Lycanroc is almost always enough if you even need the 1. 1 Lele, like I said, these games, if you're going to win the game, it's probably not lasting long. If you're going to lose the game, you probably know that because you dead drew, or you're just not hitting your combo pieces and you're going to scoop. The games, in my experience, have been pretty quick. It's usually like take all your prizes by turn 5, turn 4 sometimes maybe, but turn 5, turn 6 is like the average for me that I take all my prizes. It's a pretty fast-paced game because my attackers attack for like 1 or 2 energies. So you also aren't playing Bridget, so you don't need that turn 1 Lele because you have Brooklet Hill. So 1 Lele is fine, just like it is in Buzzwole Lycanroc. And then we're playing 2/2 Remoraid because we're trying to get down to... We're trying to take our prizes so fast, we're going to get down to like 3-2-1 prizes fairly fast in the games where everything works out how it should, or how we want it to at least. So this is here to end proof us so we don't get end down to 1 card and then have no options left. Since we're not playing Zoroark, we need some kind of draw support. And Octillery is really good, and Remoraid is also searchable by Brooklet Hill, which all of our fighting Pokemon are searchable by, so that's really good too. So that is our Pokemon lineup. Let's get into the trainers. So 1 multi-switch is something I added to this deck. Like I said, a lot of times our opponents are going to be Guzmaing around our Lucario to 2-shot something else, or to 1-shot something with less HP. So the energy on the Lucario will a lot of times be safe. So let's say our opponent Lysander's up, or Guzma's up, a Remoraid or an Octillery to kill. And so they kill that, we send up our Rockruff with no energy. It seems like Dangerous Rogue is completely out of the question. We attach an energy, we multi-switch our Lucario's energy to it, evolve Lycanroc, Dangerous Rogue for a butt ton of damage. Just like in Zoroark Lycanroc, it comes out of nowhere, kind of. So I think multi-switch is super viable to try out in this deck, and it seems pretty strong so far. But I don't want to talk too much about that. If you have any experience with Zoroark Lycanroc, you probably have some experience with multi-switch. So next is one Rescue Stretcher. Rescue Stretcher can definitely win games with this deck because it can get back a Regirock-GX that maybe you had to discard because of Parallel City to add that extra 10 damage. It can get back a Lucario, so you just evolve it on your Riolu and hit for your huge Aura Strike to win. It can get back a Lycanroc, or it can just shuffle back 3 basic Pokemon if you had a slow start and things were getting knocked out that you might need later on. So yeah, good card to have to manage your resources and get back an extra copy of a Pokemon. 3 Super Scoop Up. So Super Scoop Up is really cool in this deck because you only get to use Aura Strike to its full potential if Lucario evolved this turn. And we aren't using Acerola because, like we said, a lot of times they're not going to be hitting into our Lucario. And if they do hit into Lucario with a considerable amount of damage, we're probably going to use Cantankerous Beatdown to cantankerously beat them down. So Super Scoop Up is good because we can flip, and if we hit heads, we get to pick up our Lucario, maybe send up a new Riolu, evolve it, Energy, or Strike all over again. It's also good because we can reuse our Lycanrocs. If we have 2 Rockruffs down and one is a Lycanroc, the other Rockruff has been down for at least a turn, Super Scoop Up, pick up your Lycanroc, use its Gust effect, and you still have a supporter that's not Guzma for the turn. And because we're playing Professor Kukui, and we're like sometimes Sycamoring or Cynthiaing, trying to dig into our deck to get our combo pieces like the energy for Lucario or even the Lucario itself, a lot of times it is really useful to be able to reuse the Lycanroc because we're not going to be able to Guzma that turn. So where were we? 4 Ultra Ball. Pretty standard card. We need our Pokemon, so we need to search out Pokemon. We're playing Ultra Ball. 3 Brooklet Hill. Every basic Pokemon in this deck, aside from Tapu Lele, is searchable by Brooklet Hill. That's really, really good for us. So we can start setting up with a Stadium card. We don't need Bridget, so that means we can Sycamore turn 1, try to draw into whatever we want, and hopefully Brooklet Hill is involved in that some way, and we can search out a Riolu or a Remoraid, or one of our basics usually, so we can evolve them next turn. Then we're playing 2 Cynthia, 2 N. So we're not playing a high count of N because, like I said, this is an aggressive deck. A lot of times we're going to be going up on prizes first, so N will be less valuable to us and more valuable to our opponent. But N is still a really great card, and if our opponent does something like Big Wheel GX or Beacon or Magical Ribbon, or they go ahead on prizes faster than we do, N is still a good card to have around. We're playing 4 Guzma. Like I said, this is a very aggressive deck. And even though we are playing Lycanroc, we can't count on always having a Rockruff around to evolve it from. So we are playing 4 Guzma, so we can snipe off Lele's and smaller Pokemon with Lucario. Next is 2 Professor Kukui. In Zoroark decks, a lot of times you'll be seeing 1 Kukui, but that's because they can Puzzle of Time them back. We are not using anything that can get back supporters, so whatever we have is all we have. It's as simple as that. It's not like in Zoroark decks and maybe Zoroark Gardevoir where you have multiples of cards that you're only running 1 of, in theory. So Kukui, draw 2 cards during this turn. Your Pokemon's attacks do 20 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. This is really good to make Lucario's Aura Strike do way more than 120. Like I was talking about earlier, Strong Energy, Choice Band, Regirock, Kukui. You're hitting numbers like 180 and 190 out of nowhere. For Sycamore, like I said, we want to draw cards early. Discard your hand, draw 7. It's an aggressive deck. Yeah, sometimes you'll be getting rid of resources, but you just want to try to set up your Riolus with Energy Choice Band as quick as possible, evolve it into Lucario, and start taking those prizes. So 4 Sycamore is the way to go for aggressive decks like this. Then we're playing 4 Choice Band and 3 Floatstone. So we want to always retreat into Lucario. So having Floatstone is good in case Riolu is not our active Pokemon. There's also things like Regirock and Octillery that can get awkwardly stuck in the active, and we don't want that to happen. So we are playing 3 Floatstone, and then Choice Band is kind of one of the pieces to our combo, because we want to have Riolu down for a turn, then evolve, attach an energy, attach Choice Band, maybe another damage multiplier like Regirock or Kukui, so we can do as much damage as we can possibly do. So sometimes the combo against most GXs that aren't Zoroark involves Choice Band to hit the 180 or 190. Zoroark is the easiest one to hit because it is 210 weak to fighting, so we just need a basic fighting energy. But it's not so simple against other Pokemon GX. So the forward Choice Band is very necessary so we can hit it as often as possible. And then we're playing 4 Strong Energy and 5 Fighting Energy, and that is the deck. That's 60 cards. So this deck, it's a lot of fighting Pokemon. So as you can imagine, it does have pretty favorable matchups to most Zoroark variants. They are playing like Mew-EX and Mewtwo. Some are even playing multiples of one or the other to counter these fighting type decks. But Lucario, just taking out a Zoroark for 1 energy is just so tight. Like, it feels great to take out a Zoroark for 1 energy. This deck can definitely hold its own against Vikabulu because you can chain those 180 attacks as long as you're drawing into your Lucarios and you have a Riolu waiting on the bench. Usually Vikabulu isn't disrupting you in any way. They're usually playing Sycamores, not Ends. They don't play Parallel City, so once you get set up, though, you will usually have your setup. If they're going around Lucario because they can't hit their Choice Band, that just means they're probably taking 1 prize on like a Remoraid or Octillery or maybe hitting a Lele, and you get to keep your Lucario. That's fine. You try to hit your Super Scoop Ups. What else is there? So the Zoroark decks, you have the Zoroark weakness, you're hitting that, so that's good. The Vikabulu does seem like it's a bad matchup, but I actually think it's almost 50-50. It's pretty doable in my experience, at least. Buzzwole Lycanroc is a pretty good match. I think it's fairly close. They have the early aggression by just a pinch because they play more Buzzwoles. They also play the Mew from Fates Collide. A lot of them, they're playing that, but that only does 120 to a Lucario-GX. It doesn't one-shot you by any means. So if they hit you with that and try to just leave a 1 prizer active, hopefully you can get a Lycanroc or Guzma, and Cantankerous beat down one of their GXs for a 1-shot. So that's pretty nice. You can one-shot it. If you are really hitting what you need, you can one-shot Duskmanes if you're playing against a Duskmane deck, but that's Duskmane is unfavorable for you, but definitely doable because you can hit 190 and you can hit 150 to take out their Magnezone if they discard all their energy. So yeah, this deck, I feel like you have a chance against most things. Greninja is definitely rough, but I do feel like you have a chance against most archetypes. The Mew-EXs don't really hurt you too much because you can just swing them back with an Aura Strike on a new Lucario for 120, take 2 prizes back. And it's really aggressive against decks that need to set up, like Gardevoir, like Duskmane Magnezone, because you just get those turn 2 Aura Strikes off. Excuse me. And that's really oppressive to those decks that need to set up like that. So overall, I think it's a really good deck. Haven't seen too many people playing it at League Cups the past 2 weeks. Haven't heard a lot of talk about it either, honestly. But I do really like it. I think it's high in the tier list, probably high tier 2. And it's super good in a Zoroark-filled meta. So definitely try this deck out. Let me know what you think. Let me know if there are any changes you would make. If you like my multi-switch that I added in there that wasn't in the original list. If you think it's trash, please, by all means, let me know. So yeah, thank you guys for watching this Lucario Lycanroc deck profile. and hear me babble on about all the numbers that Lucario-GX can hit. Hope it helped someone that's trying to build this deck or try to understand how to beat certain matchups with it. Let me know if you have any questions, concerns, comments, or if there's a deck you want to see a deck profile of. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at Luke_Morsa, or just search Celio's Network and you'll find me on there. Follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/Celios_network. And of course, subscribe to me here on YouTube to get all of my Pokemon content every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'll see you next time here on Celio's Network, and have a good day.